So we have Alderman Hopper is absent, Alderwoman Day. Here. Dennis Sheehy.
Here.
John Howard.
Here.
Joe Mercado.
Yes, ma'am.
And Mohammed Nauman. And Alderman Craig.
Okay. Let's go ahead and pledge allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I forgot to say the mayor's here too.
All right. Citizens' comment period is on the agenda. Since I see nobody is taking some time out of their Tuesday evening to join us, we'll go ahead and close the citizens' comment period. Move on to item number 3, which is approval of January 2024 meeting minutes, which are attached and noted as item number 3. If you had a chance to look at those,
I move we approve the minutes as published.
Second.
we have a motion and a second to approve the minutes of January 23, 2024. Any further discussion? Hearing none. We'll go ahead and vote on that. All those approved?
Aye.
Opposed? Make the notation that, what is going on?
Yep.
We're just on item 3, approval of minutes. All right, item 4. I think we want to do an update on the OPEB trust. And I think there's some information in your packets regarding that. Danielle, do you have some comments?
Yes. So I provided an update through December 23. Intend to bring something back either in May or June, the first quarter. Assets in the OPEB trust are over $9 million through December. Just looking today, they're actually at about $9.6 million, so that's picked up quite a bit even in the last few months. As of December 23, it's a typo on your page at the bottom. It should say December 23, not December 22. We are over 100% funded in the OPEB trust. Back in 2017, it was at 73. And I know I didn't provide it, but as I was looking at the 22 audit, I noticed that it was 90% funded in 22. It was 119% funded in 21. So it just seems to fluctuate between since 2020, 90%-ish up into over 100. So we'll have to see how that changes throughout the year. The only other thing that I wanted to note on this was that U.S. Bank is our manager of the OPEB trust as of 2023. And current conditions are pretty much showing that right now the money markets are earning about 5.25% yield. The equity is earning about 1.6, and fixed income is earning about 3.75. So we're within our policy that states that we have to have 50 to 75% equity in the trust and 25 to 50% fixed income, and that's stayed pretty steady between 65 and 70 and 30 and 35. So, you guys have any comments or questions on that?
Transition to U.S. Bank, has that been okay?
Yes, I haven't had any complaints. The only thing that I need to look into is the fact that the Director of Administration is the only trustee on that account. So seeing what our policy states as far as maybe adding myself or somebody else to that.
Who works with First Wisconsin or First
U.S. Bank?
U.S. Bank? Yeah. Is that Kelly?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I think in the past we had Mark as a solo trustee, and when he left, I think that created a void. We haven't withdrawn or had to draw funds for benefit payments.
We have not had to, but Paul and I, that is something we've talked about looking into. Yeah.
Maybe coming down the road.
Yep.
Yeah, it might be worthwhile to consider having a backup.
Yep. Idea.
Just in case of larger illness, whatever. Good. Any further questions on that? I think those have been around. Realize it's been pretty nice arrangement the city, and many
Absolutely.
others would like the same.
Nice foresight back in 2008, right?
Yeah.
Someone was thinking.
All right, let's move on then to item number 5. I think Anna report on impact fees. Danielle, we chat here as well.
Yep, so statutes state that the Director of Administration is to provide an annual report on impact fees. I will gladly give that for the Director of Administration. I have put this together. I don't think that I'll have to walk through each one of them with you if you read it, but I did want to state a couple of things. There was an oversight on library impact fees, meaning as we were putting together the budget, I was under the assumption that we could use library impact fees towards the library air chiller. I had recently had a conversation with one of our consultants at Rupert Milkie who stated that that was probably not a good use of the funds. It would be really hard to argue that that is for the benefit of new development. So I have formed the Director of Administration on that, and we will be discussing on how we can possibly fund that instead. The law enforcement impact fees, fire protection impact fees, and transportation impact fees, those stay pretty steady. We just use those funds on an annual basis to pay off the debt obligations from the new facilities years ago. Water impact fees has a pretty hefty... The water impact fees has a hefty fund balance. That being said, we are doing the water tower project. There was some intended use on ARPA funds for the water tower project. However, we have gone away from that and decided to use ARPA funds towards other projects, and decided to use the borrowed funds that we have, which is roughly $3 million, towards the water tower project. It's about an $8 million project. So we intend to use the borrowed funds first, then use roughly 51% of the water impact fees, which is what Rupert Milkie says we can use. And then they have a hefty cash on hand balance as well, so we're going to use that. So you'll see that the water impact fees will go down in the next year or so, around 50% due to using them for the water tower project. Also, the beginning of 24, a water and sewer impact fee study was done, and so those impact fees collected have changed. The 2024 impact fee amount went down about 5%, and then the sewer impact fees did raise about 15% due to the large projects coming down the pipeline. It looks like around $13 million in sewer projects coming. So, and then last, the park impact fee is always the tough one. We do have around $5 million in park impact fees. We do have a ton of park impact fee eligible projects coming down the pipeline, so that will use up some of the funds that we have available. I did do a completed updated analysis and provided it to the Parks Commission and Common Council. I believe I included it when I introduced this to them, that if we don't spend another park impact fee dollar through March 31st of 2025, we'd be okay, but we may run into rebating issues if we don't use any after that. So again, I know that we're going to talk later on about some park projects that we have coming up, and so just plan to see some of those funds being used for that, which will then have the park impact fee account decline quite a bit so we don't run into a issue. Again, I intended to show this last month before showing it to the council, so you guys are kind of seeing it after the fact. But if you have any questions on impact fees?
Anything there, anybody? Sounds good. Let's move on then to item 6, solid waste and landfill.
Yeah, so I know it's been a while since the Finance Committee has seen any sort of update on the landfill siting and tippage revenue that we received. Again, I've completely updated this document that hadn't been updated since 2021, so I'd just like to note that obviously COVID didn't, it did help quite a bit with the amount of tonnage going up through the 2021, 2022 years. And then it now has stabilized more into 23 and 24. The second page shows the landfill siting revenue. As you can see, that's pretty much stayed the same except for those peaks in 21 and 22 around the COVID time. And then going down to the second landfill tonnage graph here, it shows that roughly $55,000 is a conservative average on 55,000 tons that's collected per month, and a 2% inflation factor, which has been what's been used in the past. We may be able to increase that a little bit, but that's staying pretty conservative to show that as the years go on, our landfill tonnage revenue should go up. Looking by, what is this, 2029, 2030, it'll be over $3 million and going up into 2040 and 2050. I had asked Waste Management to provide me a date that they felt may be the time that the landfill will be filled. They said that at this time they can't provide that other than it looks like 2050 and beyond. So keeping this again as conservative as I can, at least we're going to get through 2045 with the way that things are right now, depending on how fast or slow the tonnage gets placed. But 2024 revenues showed about $2.55 million in landfill siting, to be spread across the 4 capital funds that we have, with a 17-ish% allocation to the general fund. I believe our policy can't go above 20%, so it's been roughly 17 to 18%. And then last, the tippage. Historically, you can see on the graph that it's, again, just slowly increased over the years. 2024, I think we projected roughly $440,000 in the tippage rebate, and that will just continue to increase based on the 2% inflation factor and the annual 1% tonnage increase. And then the last page just states that the tonnage placed is based on the number of new households that we get and the number of recyclables that are, excludes the recyclables that are collected, but it's influenced by the number of new households. Unfortunately, commercial solid waste isn't really included, but I did want to state that, again, Kelly and I have talked about a better way to manage the solid waste fee and what that looks like for the new homes coming in, and making sure that the finance department is capturing all of those new residential subdivisions and homes that are coming in, so that we can make sure that we're capturing it in the solid waste fund and in the tonnage and tippage collection. So her and I will be meeting more to discuss on that. And if you guys have any questions on this or any comments.
Yeah, I think back in 21, 22, Waste Management renovations up in the falls and directing some volume here while some of that work was going on. So they
Okay, so that's
some
news. I didn't
variation.
know that.
I think that's accurate.
Yeah,
Said
there was
during- Can you
something.
just say that again? So
They were doing some renovations or
Oh.
changes to their site, Menominee Falls, redirecting
I did.
tonnage to Franklin location.
Yep.
Of course. But, yeah, this has been, this asset gets talked about many times in a negative way. I'm not sure that the average citizen knows
Unbelievable.
the
Incredible.
financial windfall that this provides to the city. I think to the elected officials, the challenge is to use it effectively, because it's a one-time revenue source that will end at some future date, probably after many of our times here, but just being in the right place, I guess, at the right time, let's call it that.
Yeah, and that's a challenge we are going to have in the future as far as where we're going to allocate those funds and which capital funds are needing those resources.
Any other questions? If not, let's move on to tax TID reports for 23 and look ahead a little bit as well.
Yeah, so I did want to state I made a mistake at the bottom when it says that the Wisconsin Department of Revenue TID reports are attached. They're not. I think this was the old document that I updated, and those reports are not due until July 1st, so I'd be happy to provide them closer to that time when I get ready to file those. So, but otherwise, just an update on the TID districts that we have. TID 5 formed in 2016. Project plan is essentially complete. I believe they have one, maybe two parcels left that they could develop if they so choose. The district initially projected roughly 130-ish million in project costs and increment, and it's only generating about 67.5 million in 2023, so that has created a minimum assessment guarantee shortfall that the city is working on collecting with the developer. TID 6 does have roughly $17 million in tax increment as of 2023. It's got $8.5-ish million in outstanding debt. Those also have generated 3 different minimum assessment guarantee shortfalls that we have worked on collecting. I believe we are only still outstanding on one of those, and I've talked to the attorney and the developer last week who says that payment is on the way, so we should be okay with those, but debt service payments have been made. Roughly half of the development in TID 6 is single family homes, and a lot of those are still under construction. So that being said, that development should boom in the next couple of years to get up to that additional 64 million.
Which one?
TID 6 is the Bear development over there off of Loomis and
Ryan.
yes.
79 houses.
TID 7, that's the city's only blighted district. That one is fully complete. The district has developed roughly $42 million in increment in 2023. It did pay back one of its mortgage loans. However, we still have just some outstanding debt on another loan that we took out, roughly $5 million. We do have a $14.9 million MRO bond to the developer. That began last year. It was just presented to council that there is a issue for future payments because that district is not generating the increment it was projected to generate back in 2019. Tax rates have just declined so much that none of the TID districts are developing like they thought. That being said, a letter went out to the developer to let them know that due to the apartments paying off one of their loans early, we are able to use that money to pay them annually for their MRO payments. But once that money is used up, it will only be able to be available tax increment that we can pay them. So based on the schedule, it looks like there may be a shortfall going forward, so they are aware. However, that development did assume roughly $47 million in assumptions, and it's at $42 million. It could be multiple things for that shortfall. Assessments, there's a lot of different reasons, but pretty close. So to date, that one is, again, that one's booming. It's got multiple developments that are going on right now. Saludo, Vanguard, HSA. It's got $43.5 million in increments with a projected $125 million. So with those bigger projects coming down the pipeline, and then the further development Elm Road being talked about, there's some room for growth over there. That district only has $3.5 million in outstanding debt, but we do anticipate taking some future debt out for Elm Road and any other projects we might have. TID 9, that just formed in October of 23. That is mostly for Karma Labs. That TID is supposed to generate roughly $102 million in value, increment being roughly $28 million. at the current conditions, the city did agree to a $1.5 million MRO bond with Karma based on their development, and then they also have a minimum assessment guarantee built into their development agreement within the first year. They are supposed to have complete construction done by 1/1/25, so we will be able to assess them at that time. I just had a phone call today with Ellers regarding TID 9 and the $2 million borrow that we will be doing for the sewer infrastructure. I didn't realize that it was going to be as quick as it is. I thought we had a little bit more time, but we are going to be bringing that to council on May 7th. So I didn't get a chance to provide the debt planning to this meeting, but I will provide it in the May meeting. We're going to close on that bond. It's a very straightforward bond, and we'll most likely just be reimbursing ourselves for the money that we're borrowing due to the timeline of the construction. But that should be all said and done with funds in our hands in June.
How much is that?
$2 million.
Not given the rate outlook, it might make sense to push that back. Funded here, interim year.
That was an option that I actually put in the debt plan to talk about.
I mean,
So
I always cautious with dollar amount.
well, and the market right now, I think they told me 3.5% to 4%
Yeah.
is what we
6
looking
months
at.
from now, if Biden gets his way, try and push rates down.
And we do have a healthy general fund balance. Could borrow that to bid.
Can we do
Nine.
that directly from general kit, or does it have to?
She's the expert on that. That's been asked before because there are certain guidelines that we've been
Right.
talking about with different projects.
I don't know the ins and outs of all that either, but I mean, at that small dollar amount, and I don't think we
Make a
have,
lot of sense.
you know, where we could find the 2 million or whatever a year in and roll it in bigger issue.
That was a talk too. We just didn't have any intended borrowings for 24.
Right.
That was going to be the only one. But yeah, I can certainly reach back out to Ellers, talk to them before the May 2nd.
Well, and even
Meeting
if that,
and
at the
see.
time, we could probably with 5, not run a whole bunch of risk of at higher rates, probably lower rates. They're saying,
Yeah.
yeah, I think let's at least explore that.
Absolutely.
It'd be different if it was $20 million or something, something that large, but I mean, a placement.
Well, and the fact that it's such a quick turnaround, that was also a conversation that I had with Ellers. is
Yeah.
Possibly use some internal funds because within a couple of years, we'll pay ourselves back with
Right.
the increment.
Yeah. That would at least make sense to explore.
Yep. Okay. Yeah. And then just a motion to recommend this to council and then move forward with filing those annual reports.
And those are due July, you said?
July 1st. Yep.
July 1st.
Even if you don't want to make, you can always come back with those. Want to review them first?
Any other comments from the group? Otherwise, no, I think it makes sense to get it at least in front of the council members because these TIDs are moving, they're live moving targets, stuff's going on, especially a couple of them are not quite right on target, let's put it that way. So,
Yeah, and those annual reports are basically just the revenue and expense from the TIDS 2020.
right. Now, TID 7, that includes Velo, right?
That is Vivo, yep.
Okay. All right. Any other comments? Otherwise, I think it makes sense to have a motion to refer to the council.
Okay, so moved.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second on advancing tax 2023 results and analysis, and you'll make the decision about the attached reports.
Yes.
Excellent. Are there other development activities brewing as we talked about potential borrowing and this stuff can have a lively changeover quickly, such as Paramount almost up and under.
There's a couple of things I'd like to touch on 7, or excuse me, 8.
Yeah,
Okay.
but in TIDS, I would say we don't really have any developments other than Karma going on in TID 9, TID 8, other than what's out there, like I said, Vanguard, HSA, Udo, but other
It's active.
developments. Yeah, I mean, they're active
and
developments. We have
there's
future
more.
developments coming up
Yeah.
that have been in discussion, but nothing necessary.
That point yet. Okay. Moving on to, I guess, item 8.
So I will just go through the 3 that I listed here, and then obviously we can discuss any other future agenda items. Be thinking about the debt planning for TID 9. Like I said, I had intended on bringing that in May, not realizing the push for it to be done by June with the borrowing, but I will go back and talk to Ellers about potentially using some in-house funds that we have to save some issuance costs, and have them provide me with a little bit up-to-date increment to see how long it may take us to pay that off instead of borrowing that.
Right. And what are those funds for? That's for
The sewer infrastructure,
Okay.
going up the west of the Karma development.
Sewer?
Yeah.
The goal, is south and west.
So, 2023 financial results, myself, Tom and the finance team have been working hard with CLA to get the audit started. We had them here, I think, 3 weeks ago. They are helping us with our fixed asset accounting and getting us all squared up with that. Today, Tom just finished the water and sewer fixed assets and depreciation. So I believe that we are all ready for them. They're coming on Monday, and they'll be here all next week to do the field work for the audit. Audit's due July 31st, but we obviously intend and want that done a lot sooner. So in May, I should have some better preliminary results, and then also the year-end budget alignment. I did provide some of the final budget amendments for carry forwards and the budget encumbrances. And again, I apologize. I took those to council already as we didn't have a meeting last month. And I'd be happy to provide those if you didn't get a chance to look at them in the council packet. But as far as the budget alignment for the year end, that'll come in May when we get closer to finalizing the audit. And one other thing that's not on here, but again, it could be a future agenda item. I know myself and the mayor want to talk about some issues that we're having with projects. Financially, it seems that there's a lot of projects that are being overrun, budgets being blown out. And that being said, we really need to look forward into what the future looks like with borrowing funds, using funds that we have on hand, maybe saying no to projects depending on how overrun they're going. There just needs to be a better project management plan in place. So we have some future discussion on that. But
capital type projects or
very,
operations?
yes, no, very, very high capital DOT projects, park impact projects.
Oh, construction's really been head high.
And like I said, we run into an issue with the DOT where we commit to a project and we sign a commitment for the DOT, and then we're kind of bound to whatever price they put on it. They give us an initial price, we sign, we say, okay, we want to move forward with the project, and then a year down the road, it's 5 times what they said it's going to be, and there's not much we can do about it, and we have a handful of those. So, projects that look like they're going to cost the city $400,000 are now costing us $1.5 million, and it's hard to manage that, especially when they're moving projects up. They give us a timeline. We're going to do this project in 27, 28, and it up to 24, and you're like, whoa, didn't plan on that. Oh, and the budget's going to be 3 times what it said it was. So we're just running into some of those issues with park projects and engineering of DOT projects. So.
And just to add to that is, when we're getting these projects, and I think the project management component piece is, okay, if we are committing, and the city's committing to signing on with the state, and this is just one example. I mean, there's other examples that are non-state related projects that are coming into her office from engineering saying, hey, look, I know this is where we're at, but now we need more. And it's putting us all as Franklin taxpayers in a bad spot. And how do we manage that? How do we control that risk? And I just think that's just to Danielle's point, it's about project management from square one and staying on it timely, because we are getting just hammered. We are just getting decimated. And every time Glenn Morrow comes up from downstairs, it's never good news. And it's not his fault some of the times, but it's just what we're dealing with is just insane. And the construction being under with the inflationary component, well, are they not coming forward with this? And I think at the council level, and when we have our council meetings, perhaps it has to be a pump to brakes, and maybe we have to reassess, because I'm not going to go to the taxpayers. I don't want to recommend that hey, because they're going to look to us and say, well, didn't you know? Well, why didn't you know? But some of the things we can control, some we can't. So this is something that I want to bring through Danielle, obviously, the next meeting, but we're probably going to hit this. If the 28th is your next meeting here, my goal is to have it on the second meeting in May for the council to get made well aware of. So it's kind of going to be the inverse again on this, just because they have to know now. You council members need to know now this terrible pitfall we're looking at with numerous projects. I mean, she's done a yeoman's job and detailing where the shortfalls are, and it's alarming to the nth degree. And it's not. And this is a number of projects. I mean, it's not like just one where we can point fingers and yell. No, this is a number of them where the council's going to have to make some very tough decisions. I mean, the council's going to be like, hey, do we need this now? Are we going to, then does it jeopardize park impact fees? So there's a number of moving parts to this that we're going to be bringing forth.
We'll bring it forth in May, and then obviously it'll come here, and like he said, the inverse, but it's going to be not just a one meeting topic. So we'll have to talk about, like I said, future obligations, future plans, what project management looks like.
So I understand this a little better, okay? You're talking the Department of Transportation coming to do a road project. Is that what you're talking about?
That's one of the
one of the many.
Sure.
They'll give you, say, we're going to start this in 2023, and then all of a sudden they say, we're going to do it in 2022 or whatever. They move it. You give you a timeline, and then they kind of say, we're starting it now, and by the way, your cost goes up. And there's really no control the city has to say, we're not paying that. It's just, it's interesting.
Or we back out.
I was going to say, you back out, or you can change the design, but that includes cost and...
Yeah, you get civil engineers who have job security issues. So when you look at Ryan Road, right, that's a state project because it's Highway 100, right? So they could come in, I'm just curious, and we'll move on in a second. So when you look at Ryan Road or this in Loomis, these are state-funded projects, but they're not really state-funded. They're state-orchestrated, partially funded by the state, and partially by the taxpayers of Franklin, right?
By the municipality that it hits and runs.
And you really don't get a lot of vote in the process, I assume, or council doesn't, or you could.
Not really. I mean, the designers of the designers, and they put down the specs, and then they bid the specs. But then when that bid comes in higher, we're not knowing it up here. We find out later.
Okay. All right.
Because this is what your municipal or your municipality local cost share. Cost share could be.
Because it's an 80-20 with the state. There's different
formulas.
Federal projects have, that's dominated there. But yeah, we go in with one set of ideas and whatever, and then it comes back to reality, and it's like, well, they're driving the ship, and we're trying to hang on. And oh, by the way, bring an extra $1 million.
It's hard to fluctuate or to guesstimate, fluctuating costs like fuel and things like that and what you're going to use. I was just curious why this was all torn up out here. I ride that on my bike all the time, and I didn't really feel, but I don't do construction DOT stuff, so maybe those little minor cracks are, being done ahead of time?
Well, there was a meeting tonight at the library regarding that.
Oh, is there?
That's where I came from.
Okay.
It's pretty well attended.
All right.
State put it on.
And they're also, like I said, the DOT is, they have a list, you can go right on their website and it'll give you all their projects and the cost and the determination of who's gonna be impacted, what year the projected timeline is. The problem is they wanna get their stuff done too, so these projects that they project to be done 4 and 5 years out are now, oh my gosh, we have the money or we have the people or whatever, so now we're gonna move it up to next year.
Do you think the dollar impact is big here at the state there? It's magnified, so it's all a matter of what's coming in from fuel tax, moment, projects that are set, what they can move around, availability of materials, labor, etc. I mean,
So the city has some input, but not, ultimately the state just says we're doing it. You can kind of push back a little bit. Is that the way? Because I get a lot of questions from my community where I live in too, and I never should have told people I was on this committee. So I just want to be able to give educated answers because I think honestly, as a side note, council and you guys are doing a great job doing everything to hold taxes down during an inflationary time. So we have these discussions in our neighborhood all the time. So I just want to make sure I understand it so I can give accurate information. So thank you.
And about these projects, all these projects all run independent, different silos, don't we have, or maybe kind of like a program management, where
Well,
at a different stages,
No.
it's
I mean,
all
we have,
about
we have
her
a,
and Kelly.
yeah, we have a capital improvement plan, we have a budget that we try and follow, what's approved, what's not approved. But again, these projects are approved at one price.
I'm not talking about just the DOT, but even the other
Yeah,
projects.
there's a, yes,
When there's increase in project cost, and how do we basically?
and that's
it's
what
not
we're
too
gonna be
late.
discussing, is what better project management
right. We are.
can we
Absolutely
put
are.
in place within the city of Franklin
Which
so
is
that
more
all
timely.
departments are,
More timely in real time. Like,
Yes.
hey, we're anticipating a problem's coming, not after the problem is here when they come
Yeah.
knocking on
That's
her
it,
door
Exactly.
and just, that's where everything gets awry, and that's where we have to control that, and it's the engineering's issue. Our engineering department has to come up with a better project management plan. Has to.
Any other?
have
Items?
future items.
I just put down the monthly financials so we can get
Yes.
back to some kind of
Yes,
interim
trust me,
report.
that has been,
And
Yep.
I'm sure that it is amongst all the other things on it. But
One item, maybe not part of this, but I know the library HVAC thing, there was a discussion, so stuff like that, because I know for sure there may be some grants or there may be.
yeah,
some
so
of these
with
things.
Johnson Controls, yes, we're looking at grants and all of that stuff with that contract. We just Johnson Controls and what that might look like for some of our buildings and their infrastructure instead of using the funds we have.
all right, anything else? Still waiting for the time when things will settle down and get right there.
I really believed that it was going to be around this time, and I realized it's still taking a little bit longer. Yep.
You're doing an exceptional job. Exceptional.
And just to say, I still do have Paul helping. He was out for a little bit, but he intends on coming back here very soon. So
How's he doing?
He's doing pretty.
Good, glad to hear.
Yes.
This is radiation.
he
Good.
was out for a little bit for medical, but received an email from him last week that he's a lot better and asks
Super.
when he can come back. So
All right, anything else? Otherwise, I think we can take motion to
Moved.
a motion and a second to adjourn. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.